uncensored. Welcome to Hauntoverse Uncut.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Hauntoverse Uncut. It's been a while, but we are back for another exciting season of Haunt. I know it's only March, but we're here.
It's not even April yet.
It's not even April yet, Brian. So I'm, of course, Aaron Barchek, joined once again by Mr. Haunt himself, Brian Bass. Brian, welcome back to Hauntoverse Uncut. I know you're in hot demand. For haunt shows nowadays.
yeah, it is. You can never have too many of them. That's my thought on that.
So we are back to talk a little Halloween Horror Nights because we did get our very first announcement this past week. No shock, Brian, but Stranger Things is coming back.
I was gonna do a bit about hold the phone. What Stranger Things? No one's surprised here. We called it last year. Stranger Things was announced, but Andy, very interesting little tidbit in that announcement. Go ahead and tell anybody that may not know what our first discussion point is going to be, which is that little detail about the Stranger Things house that actually could be a little bit bigger than what it seems.
Well, last year was obviously the first year setting new standards for, I guess, non-HHN people to get interested in this event. So it brought in a ton of people. For all intents and purposes, it sounds like both coasts had wonderful years for HHN. So obviously they're bringing back Stranger Things this year. But like you said, the twist, the spin on this is that this house is going to be both seasons 2 and 3. And that's strange because I remember sitting here last year about this time, and we said that season 1 was actually probably the weaker of the seasons to do a house on. Yep. Now we're finally getting into the stuff that translates better into, what a haunted house should be, and we're combining stuff all of a sudden.
Yeah. Exactly. We said that last year. I remember when Stranger Things was announced. I won't beat the dead horse, which was, oh my gosh, it brought in people who've never been to haunts. The event was insane. That house, from start to finish, I think held like a 2-hour wait on average every night, if not more. It was a gorgeous house. It was great. Again, that's been discussed. You can find a lot of information on that elsewhere. What we're here to talk about is the fact that last year, we were like, okay, season 1 as a house, there's not really that much horror content because there was a lot of development, and it still worked. It was great, but I was excited for a season 2 house. We get that announcement pretty much in the same week we were expecting to, and out of nowhere, we read that season 3 is also going to be a part of this house, and that opens up a lot of different things. And let's just talk about everybody called Stranger Things. There was only a few of us. You and I had discussed. Another good friend of mine, Ryan Houts, has discussed. He loved Stranger Things in the house, that maybe they'd combine the seasons. Now, here's why I thought they would do that. And here's why I'm interested to see if it's why they did that. Next year, not this current year, that hasn't happened yet. Next year, 2020, is the 30th anniversary of Halloween Horror Nights. Are they making room for a huge throwback event, right? The best of the best, 30 years of fear. They did it for 20 and touched on quite a few old content pieces and old houses, icons, all that good stuff. Are they making way for that, or is it something completely different? Could we see, God forbid, the Walking Dead method, do a bunch of seasons, and when it's not done yet, do a recap house? Are they squeezing 2 and 3 in so that for 30th they have the entire Stranger Things collection house? Or are they going to do season 4 as a standalone? There's a lot of different options. Andy, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I personally think it has to do with it being year 30, that they're trying to get it out of the way. And I will say I'm bummed that it's a combo house, because season 2 could be its own house with everything, the tunnels, all of it could be incredible. I'd love to spend as much time in there. With it being a combo house, will we also see something in the same vein as Walking Dead, where they did the longest house they had ever had in that soundstage space. So,
well, that's what I'm thinking. Is this going to be, one of the longer houses that they're going to do seasons 2 and 3 together, and make it? I don't want to say double the size, but are they going to make it larger than what a normal house would be? The other interesting thing is that I don't know if you know this, but the website did launch for Halloween Horror Nights with the announcement of Stranger Things, and we are getting 10 houses at Orlando. It also seems like 5 scare zones. They have
and I'm happy to see that, because there was something last year that scared a lot of people. I don't remember which house debuted with a promo, but after we had already confirmed 10 houses and everyone thought 10 houses, some promo came along, like maybe in the summer, that was like featuring 9 haunted houses, and everybody flipped out. And I think it was very intentional that they stated right out of the gate, there will be 10 again. And with the size of last year, 10 almost isn't enough to hold everybody. I mean, every house, there was we hit capacity on a Friday night. We went, and man, by 11 p.m. we were eating dinner and going to Diagon Alley, because we had after 11 fast pass, and until that point, dude, house lines were hour 30, 2 hours, 2 hours 30 across the board. So they definitely need those attractions to house everybody. And with Stranger Things coming back, I know for sure at least 60 to 80% of those people that went last year who had never been to a haunt before in their life or gone to Halloween Horror Nights are going back for Stranger Things. So
now I'm going to throw this out there, okay?
Right.
And this is a theory. Is Universal hedging their bet here and saying we're going to do seasons 2 and 3 because possibly one, there's 2 roads you can go down here. One, maybe the Netflix show isn't going to do that well. That we know Netflix shows in general don't really have a whole lot of staying power.
True.
And Stranger Things seems to be the biggest Netflix show of all time. Is the popularity of that franchise going to die down? Universal, like you said, coming up on their 30th. Maybe they don't want to go all in on doing one season every year. Maybe they just want to just say, hey, we're going to do the 2 houses. It's a 2-year deal. And then, or maybe on the other hand, maybe Stranger Things, if it does stay popular, maybe they ask too much money. Now, we're going to talk a little bit later about why that might not be such a great idea for Universal, because they're running out of properties to even use very quickly here as we're speaking.
And that's that goes back to the Netflix relationship. As we go into that later, that relationship is great right now, and they are getting along really well. And they're going to have to lean on them pretty heavily. And that thought did cross my mind. Honestly, it was the first thought. When I read that they're going to do seasons 2 and 3, my very first thought was, they don't have faith in this. Yeah. And that was cynical, I felt, because it is massive. But maybe it's not. Season 3 trailer dropped, and it was received well. I saw a lot of people post, but not as many people that posted with season 2.
No,
and it's true. And maybe they did. Maybe they saw such a fall off that up until now, they're like, look, season, or year 30 is coming up. We can do the Stranger Things route, but let's see the popularity of it. Let's see how pop culture handles this, and we'll make our call then. And I think over the last year, especially with Netflix waiting so long, they put more time in between season 2 and 3 that, okay, we can wrap it in and it'll be great. I will say I'm a little bummed, because when I watched the season 3 trailer, I was like, dude, I can't wait. I can't wait to go through that house next year, even though I haven't seen the season 2 house, because the mall locations, it looks really great. They're going to see Halloween Horror Nights is going to do what they do best. And hearing it was combined, I was kind of like happy and sad at the same time, because as a true Horror Nights fan, Andy, I don't like repeating houses. I loved Slaughterhouse last year. I loved it. Don't bring it back this year, please.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that Walking Dead kind of overstayed its welcome.
By like 4 years, bro. By like a really long time. Okay.
And maybe that's the other part of this, is maybe they're like, well, 2 years is enough. We don't need to go to the 3rd year. That the 3rd year, we don't know what the series is going to do on Netflix. Even if we do know that, we know that the fans of Horror Nights don't respond well to maybe that third year, especially that fourth year.
Well, and let's use this to segue, just because, and we'll come back, we'll bounce around, but segue into the Fox Disney acquisition. Disney acquiring Fox kills a franchise that had been at Horror Nights for 3 years, American Horror Story. Or 2 years. They did 2 years, right? They wanted to do the third year. Yeah. And now even on the second year, when Asylum and Coven and Roanoke, I don't remember, whatever years they did, people were like, the house was long, right? People were already over it by the second year.
Yeah.
And I think they were a little bit bummed from Walking Dead. Nobody wants it to overstay its welcome, And if you want to go to a haunt in this country that does repetitive houses, choose literally every other park haunt in the country other than Halloween Horror Nights. And I don't know. With the Fox deal, we probably won't ever see American Horror Story again. I'm bummed. There's a lot of other titles in there that they were either used. Thank God we got Poltergeist when we did, because that was arguably one of the best houses they've ever done. I don't think, when they did 25 and they did additional houses, we saw them bring back identical clones of some of their most popular houses. And what does that mean for year 30? Because they lost a lot of titles in that. So now they have a smaller pool to pull from. And that's why I thought they would have milked Stranger Things, honestly, is to keep that at least something alive, some franchise.
Well, like me, Alien versus Predator completely off the table now. Or them doing, the dream's always been them doing a standalone Alien or a standalone Predator house. That's off the table.
That was a hard one, man. I with the success of that house, I for sure thought we would have seen a standalone either or, especially with the new Predator movie out,
Yeah.
And man, Alien. A standalone Alien house is the dream in my mind. That is one of the most iconic, my favorite horror movies of all time.
I was really surprised last year that we didn't see that Predator house with the movie. Me being a huge Predator fan, I tried to watch that new movie. I've only made it halfway through. It is that bad. It is that awful. So maybe that was part of it, where they said, well, we don't really want to do this. We want to do the classic, and people balked at that because we've seen that, with Scream and other franchises going down that road. But like you said, Horror Nights has a whole lot missing there. So the question is, where are they going to get it? Yeah. And other thing I've seen a whole lot of is maybe they want to start tapping into other Netflix properties. I see a whole lot of people saying Sabrina.
Oh, that would be good too. Okay.
I'm wondering what you were thinking.
Because so Sabrina's actually that's a smarter play because it hit a lot of people. Andy, there's only one Netflix show I want to see at Halloween Horror Nights this year. And when I finished the last episode, I said, I swear to God, if that hits Horror Nights, I will buy my ticket in a heartbeat. And it was a pipe dream. No one was talking about this, by the way, at the time. And very recently, several people have mentioned, due to the Netflix relationship, the Stranger Things weird 2 and 3 thing, that there's a chance that the Haunting of Hill House could come to Halloween Horror Nights. And Andy, as that was one of my favorite things to happen in a really long time. I love that book. I love the movies, despite how cheesy or bad some of them are. I'm a sucker for traditional haunted houses, and Haunting of Hill House, House on Haunted Hill, all of the iterations of it are near and dear to my heart. And that show, as a drama, as a horror, it did something that Stranger Things did. It captured a lot of people who don't watch scary things. And that's why I think there's some viable thing there for Halloween Horror Nights. Again, I just wanted it. I didn't think it was possible. Other people discussing it makes it not sound stupid. Sabrina is another really good idea because the same thing. That's got enough horror elements to it with enough GP people watching that you could have solid titles and solid houses there.
And to be honest with you, I tried to watch Sabrina. My wife watched the entire season. She liked it. She loved it. I tried to watch it. I thought it was cheesy. I couldn't get over it. But you could turn that into a pretty cool house.
Yeah.
They have enough, like you said, elements there within the story to build something. So maybe we're going to see a whole Netflix
A whole shift. We really could. And let's just play into, we're just going to go deep here if you're still with us. This is the 10th year anniversary of The Usher, which is the first year I attended and everything was movie themed. They teased it in Carnival Graveyard last year. There was a marquee that said, I'll be back or see you next year or something like that. And a lot of people thought the director. That's such an obvious choice because he's the stronger icon. I think it's a throw off for The Usher. But if we have a movie year, regardless, this could be the new age. People aren't going to the movies as much anymore. It's too expensive. Theaters are struggling. Netflix and streaming services are where the majority of people are watching their content right now. Do we see a shift? And Universal, let's look at Universal's history, their track record. They cave for what's ever popular right now. I mean, all of their attractions. You have Jimmy Fallon and Fast and the Furious and all of these. They want to do a Nintendo Land because that's resurged all of a sudden. They want to cut all of these things. Lost Continent died for Harry Potter. You have all of these new titles that their Jaws is gone. They don't care about their past, unlike Disney. Disney takes 8 years to rebuild a ride based on their old ride, you know? Universal's like, what's popular now? Jimmy Fallon? Great. Like, let's put it in the park. We'll replace it, soon. And I could see Horror Nights tapping into the Netflix vibe, man, because there's enough there. And honestly, over the last 3 years, in my opinion, Halloween Horror Nights has redefined what can be a house. Because when they announced Shining, I was nervous and I laughed. Exorcist, Poltergeist, none of those made sense in my mind as a house. And guess what? Poltergeist was, I still don't know if I rank it second, first, or third from last year. It was such a good house. And I don't know. I could see them tapping into the streaming services, especially Netflix, because they've been tweeting all year back and forth at each other. They have such a good relationship. We could see at least 2 to 4 titles from them. And
it's interesting that you say that because when I think about Sabrina, to me, on the surface, that might not have been an obvious choice to do a house for. That maybe in years past, because it's not. I don't want to say kiddie, but it's not as hardcore horror as what we've become accustomed to with Horror Nights. But that's been the discussion, hasn't it? All last year, every discussion, every message board was Universal moving towards making the event a little bit. I hate to say the word, but watered down,
nerfed, if you will.
Making it more family friendly.
I totally forgot that article came out before the event was even over. That with the success of Stranger Things, they were going to look for more family friendly titles. As it sucks to say, and don't think like, oh, Mickey's Not So Scary family friendly. We're not talking that, watered down, but something like Stranger Things versus Leatherface and all the slasher horror
even to the point where I heard people talking and speculating that Doctor Who would get a house.
And
that's not a horror.
It's not a horror. It's got, I will say, respect to Doctor Who, 2 of the episodes I've seen stuck with me and were scary. Psychologically though, not in the horror sense. IL loves Doctor Who. A lot of people at Universal love Doctor Who. They've had Doctor Who stuff forever. And with the success of Stranger Things, if anybody could pull it off, I think they could. I don't want it. I don't care about it. It's not like proprietarily scary. It's not even majority scary. There's a lot of cool creatures. There's a lot of cool worlds. There's a lot of interesting ideas. But that would bring a whole new audience. And here's the next question. Does that start to ruin the event? Because you're going to get people who are not okay with the stuff going on in other houses.
But let's throw it back. Let's throw it way back here, Brian, before you started going, obviously before I started going. This is kind of where the event started too. If you trace it all the way back in Hollywood and even in Orlando's those early years, Hollywood had some really strange houses. They had Angel houses based on
Yeah.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They had an Undertaker and Kane house one year,
which
in
I
Hollywood.
regrettably missed, by the way. If I could go back in time, that would be the one I would go to.
You know, even in Orlando, a decade in, you know, when they were doing it in Islands Adventure, you had the Maximum Carnage house.
Yeah.
Like,
which looked amazing. And that's why, you know, I don't know why I doubted such story-driven horrors to be turned into houses. They've transformed some of the most unrelatable content to very relatable houses. So I think that makes everything game in a weird way. So
you know, and you look at what other haunts are doing around the country. I think people are trying to move away from those traditional horror icons, and moving into something that's more digestible for everyone. You know, even Warner Brothers with their haunt last year for the first year, someone finally did an Arkham Asylum haunt. The one thing I've been asking for years. Why is Six Flags not doing an Arkham Asylum? Like, seriously, here we finally get it at Warner Brothers, and you know, it's hard to get a lot of reports out of there, but everyone said that the stuff there was pretty good too. So you know, maybe we're looking at trying to find properties that are going to spark interest, sell t-shirts, get people through the gates. And maybe your Freddy, Jason's, you know, and all those traditional horror movies, we're not going to see those much anymore. You're going to see, and their original content, which I think a lot of people get excited about, will kind of balance that out for you. Like, I was never one, like, you know me, Brian. I'm not one to, you know, partake in a lot of watching of horror films. So if I was to walk through, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I wouldn't know any difference between that or whatever else is going on. It's still scary, though. You know, it's still, you walk through it, I don't think you need to know the story. Sometimes I felt that in those houses, they got bogged down in the story too much, and it was at the detriment of it being scary. So maybe if you can take the scariest parts of Sabrina and not have to tell the story of season 1 and just take you through some pretty scary things that are going to look nice, I think that might be the road to go, as opposed to, you know, trying to retell a story. And I think Poltergeist is another example where they started with the movie and they added things to it that you wouldn't expect.
It was amazing. And that was a dream come true. And for people who hadn't seen the movie, they still didn't care. They're like, that house was scary. They didn't need to know. It doesn't matter.
And like the whole beginning of it, they take you through the underground section. Like, they added that sort of thing to it, that traditional haunted house. But is maybe not so much, maybe a little part of the movie or a little aspect of the movie. And now they're going to expand upon that to make it into more of a haunted house feel. I thought Poltergeist was really well done versus, you know, it's hard for me to talk about The Shining because I only did the Hollywood version, which
And to that point, I think Universal got too far to that side. Harry Potter is a great example where they catered to the fan base, which alienated anybody who didn't know anything about it. You ask someone who knows nothing about Harry Potter to ride Forbidden Journey and ask them what they think that ride was about. They have no idea. It doesn't make any sense. As a Harry Potter fan, it barely makes sense, right? So you look at it, but it's great. It doesn't matter. It's nostalgia. You're seeing the things you wanted to see. And that's where I was in Halloween Horror Nights. When I mistakenly went to the Saw house my very first year and waited 3 hours and 8 minutes to go through a 4-minute house. Because I had been waiting 12 years to go to this event. What was another 3 hours, you know? And the Saw house was my favorite franchise at the time, and I loved everything about it because the music cues with the scenes and everything was amazing. But for the guy behind me who had never seen it said, why did I just wait 3 hours for that crap? And it's true. If you don't know the content and they're catering to the people with the content, and this was American Horror Story, this is a lot of stuff, I would say, not in the last 3 years. I'd say before, like the last 3 years, they've gotten better at it. Before then, if they did a property as a house, it was catering to the fans. Exactly. I remember Cabin in the Woods. My friend was like, dude, that house is really cool, but I feel like I'm missing out on something. You know, I feel like they spent too much time catering to the fans and just showing the scene for the sake of the feel, right? Of the nostalgia, of the, wow, I'm in it. And that's what Universal does. They put you in the middle of the movie. But a lot of their attractions have gotten better at giving you context of that movie so that the general public, and again, a lot of the international traffic has helped with that. They need to be able to know as much as possible with as little as possible. And I agree. I think you can take these properties and take just a piece of it and run with it. And I was honestly a little bit against the idea when they said, so we've taken the main story of Poltergeist and we've added a lot to it. I'm like, well, okay, you think you're better than, the writers and all this? And I walked through it and I was like, yeah, you are. That was the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And, it really was unbelievable. And I agree. I think it goes to Ola Murray. It doesn't matter what's jumping out at you. Doesn't matter what you're walking through. If it's scary, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And I think personally it depends, because for me, I love stories. I love movies. I can walk into that house and I'm afraid because I know every in and out of that movie. And that means a little bit more to me. But also Slaughter Cinema and other houses that had literally no context except for the moment that you were in, terrifying, amazing. And my buddy blew my mind as in depth as I am with reading all this. I was talking to a buddy I took who had never been to the event. We were talking maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And he goes, what I can't stop thinking about with Halloween Horror Nights? And I was like, what? He's like, Slaughter Cinema. I feel like I know all of those movies. I feel like I've seen them all already. I feel like I remember watching them. He goes, until I showed up and got in line, I didn't know anything about anything they were showing me. And with a few 30-second trailers and incredibly detailed and well-chosen scenes and stories, I felt in that one scene more involved than some of the movie houses they had. And it's a testament to their ability to tell stories with very, very little.
And that's the thing is, like you walk through these houses, you have 3 to 4 minutes to tell a complete story.
Yep.
And I feel like sometimes in the property houses that they waste 2 or 3 of those minutes, even trying to set up something, trying to tell you a story, or if you've never seen the movie, trying to tell you that story. Like I Trick or Treat, I felt that way.
Yeah.
Like they tried to tell you this story, and if you've never seen the movie, you're not going to get that story in that 2 to 3 minutes anyway. So if you're walking in blind, it's not coming to you.
It's not coming to you. And the really hard part with that one was it's an anthology. So
Yeah.
even the movie takes a long time because it's 4 stories in one story. And when I walked through that house, it's one of my favorite Halloween movies of all time. When my brother walked through it, he goes, that was scary. I don't know what's going on though.
Yeah. Yeah. Poltergeist has the same limitation, has to tell the same amount of story. And I felt that house did it in a far better way, that you walked in there and you're like, oh, they've obviously unearthed a grave here. We're walking through the grave and now there's ghosts in the house. Pretty simple story to tell. They got to it. They got to the scary parts, and now you're in a real haunted house. I thought it was brilliant. And that's why, that's like you said, that's the brilliance of Poltergeist versus sometimes they lose focus in the other houses because they're trying to set stuff up and it's just not working.
Yeah.
But like you said, Slaughterhouse, then you have even less time. You were literally walking through something for 30 seconds and they're telling you the whole story.
And you got the whole thing. And it was really impressive. So I don't know with the Stranger Things. I think it could be any one of the, we're losing steam. Let's not drag this out any longer. We'll be done with it. Even though it was wildly popular last year, nothing is as popular the second year. I think it'll still be popular. I just don't think you'll see as many people flock to it. Then you have year 30 next year. Who knows what that means? I mean, that'll be a whole episode of us trying to figure out what they're going to do. And then you have, are we going to see Haunting of Hill House? Did they do season 2 and 3 so that they could start Hill House next year? Or are we going to get Hill House this year? Are they doing seasons 2 and 3 because they're going to do a wrap-up house next year and do all 4 seasons? We won't know till next year. I don't really care. we knew this announcement was coming because here's why I was excited when that hit. Not because I care about Stranger Things so much. It was a good house. I did it once. The line was too long. I don't really care. I am excited because that's out of the way, and now we get to the fun stuff. We get to the stuff that no one really knows if it's confirmed or not. Everyone called Stranger Things. No one's patting anybody on the back for that one. And with that, we're going to get to my predictions for this year. I don't have a lot because, man, they've been tight this year. And maybe I'm busy with 2 kids and a real job, but
finally got a
real job. So, maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but up until some concept art being leaked for Stranger Things, there's not been anybody who can confidently say what they think is coming this year. We have some clues. Here's what I called by February of this year. I called Stranger Things Season 2 with a potential combination house of Season 2 and 3. I think I will be blown away if we don't see Killer Clowns from Outer Space 3D house. He had so much trouble getting that house approved. He gets to take over the event last year. It goes over amazingly. And he said in his roundtable he'd love to see it as a 3D house, and so he did it as a scare zone. Trick or Treat 2 years ago was a scare zone house the next year. I guarantee you we will see Killer Clowns from Outer Space 3D house. Next up, Halloween. We got Halloween 4 last year. Everybody was like, huh? I expected that name, but not that iteration of it.
Yeah.
And there was all sorts of we don't want to spoil the movie, which is stupid because they've released movie houses before. There was that weird little Easter egg at the end of Halloween 2, the reboot of the series that doesn't include anything after the original Halloween one. Anyway, credits roll. Michael Myers starts to breathe, and Universal Parks and Resort pops up. Not the Universal movie logo. That was interesting because that doesn't typically happen after a movie. So right there, you got Stranger Things, Halloween, and Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I called Doctor Who. If they are going to do Doctor Who, it'll be for year 30. That's a massive title. It's a big draw. I don't see them wasting it this year. They have enough momentum from last year. I don't think they need to do it this year. I think we'll see an icon. I would love to see an icon. If it's movie themed, I think we're going to see director or usher. I'm calling usher because of the 10-year anniversary. Or if it's not either of them, no icon again. And we just wait for the only reason we would see an icon is to condition everybody for next year when Jack comes back, or whatever icon alley that we get, to remind people that icons are still a thing.
Yeah.
Haunting of Hill House is my wish list. It's my dream. It's my pipe dream. It's becoming a little more tangible because more people are starting to talk about it. It was viral last year. A lot of people watched it. It was a great show. That's my wish list item. After that, I got nothing. The only holes I can poke in any of those theories is I went and watched Us the other night in theaters. It was great. Guess what was at the end of those credits? Universal Theme Park and Resort. So unless Us is coming to Halloween Horror Nights, which it'd be pretty bad, it'd be pretty awesome. Actually, I saw that and I was like, but maybe it's just something they're tagging now just to promote the parks and brand. Or maybe it was another silent Easter egg that I've seen literally nobody talk about. So if Us makes it this year, which it won't, that's the only thing I could see. Other than that, originals, who knows? That I've got nothing on that, and I don't know what the 5th intellectual property would be. So, because I think we do have confirmed a 5/5, right?
I don't know for sure, but that seems to be likely based on what they've been doing in the past few.
Yeah.
So and I think we're gonna start seeing a whole lot more concepts, like we said, concepts that you wouldn't have expected at Horror Nights. Things like Us, things like Doctor Who, things like The Haunting of Hill House. Concepts that you might not have expected because of all these properties being, pulled off the table. And on top of that, you got to remember that Warner Brothers is doing their own haunt too.
And that hurts because I just wanted to see it at Halloween Horror Nights. That's all I wanted. For 2 reasons. Because it is near and dear to my heart. I love it. The reiteration of it is amazing. The new movie is great. The sequel, part 2 is going to be awesome. I would have loved to see Halloween Horror Nights use that house appropriately because the Warner Brothers stuff looked awesome. I heard a few reviews that there weren't enough actors and that it felt a little flat. Now, it is their first year.
Yeah.
They can't be where Horror Nights is. No one starts off there. And the second reason I would have loved to see it at Horror Nights is just so I could make Devin Olsen go through it and confront his fear of clowns, just like we did with the Jack House. And that was one of the greatest Halloween Horror Night memories of all time. So I would have loved to see that. So, but yeah, you have all these titles being pulled from the table. So now Halloween Horror Nights has no choice but to be constrained, which is usually when the best work comes, right? Creativity, the best work is when you're constrained and when you have, limits put on you.
So I think that'll wrap us up here for tonight, but I think this is going to lead us into our next episode, Brian, because you had said something on our Epic group chat one evening, and it kind of goes along with what we were talking about here. But it's really the opposite of what we're talking about here. That we know with the Disney, merger, Fox merger happening, that they're pulling a whole lot of content off of Netflix.
Yeah.
So maybe this Netflix turning into haunted house things might go a little further. And you suggested the idea that maybe haunted houses should turn into Netflix shows. So maybe we need to explore that concept on our next episode.
That's a whole talk, and I don't think it's unrealistic. I really don't. And I can't wait to get into that discussion. And man, you're right. With how everything's going, it's a realistic route that they could take, and
they're going to need just like Horror Nights is strapped for content. Netflix is going to be strapped for content.
And you got Apple Plus coming out now, which I hear 2 or 3 people care about. I don't know much past that, but anybody who doesn't make it through Hulu and Disney Plus and all the other options out there, they'll finally wind up on Apple Plus. But we're about to start seeing the beautiful glory days of 2 or 3 streaming services owning everything are coming to an end, unfortunately.
Yeah. And
it's going to be interesting to see what everybody does. And if Netflix and Halloween Horror Nights have a good relationship, why not?
Why not, right? So we'll be commenting on that on our next episode of Hauntoverse Uncut. But as always, thank you for joining us here this evening on Hauntoverse Uncut. I'm, of course, Andy Robarchuk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I am Brian Bass. Spring hasn't even started here in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's haunt season. So
it's haunt season. It's pouring out rain here.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Scare on, Scare Warriors.